15.2, Adding and Subtracting Rational Expressions. There are two steps that we're going to follow for adding and subtracting rational expressions. Step 1, if the denominators are the same, add and subtract the numerators, and then place that result over that common denominator. If the denominators are different, first find the least common denominator, and then write all rational expressions with the LCD, then add or subtract the numerators, and place that result over the common denominator. So this is the same thing as how you would add and subtract fractions. We're going to follow the same rules for rational expressions. Step 2 is to simplify. Write all answers in lowest terms. Okay, so example 1, A is 3m over 8 plus 5n over 8. So notice that they have a common denominator of 8, and then 3m plus 5n, and all of that is going to be over 8. And then there's really nothing that I can do to simplify that. I can't factor or anything, so that's going to be my final answer. On B, we have 7 over 3a plus 10 over 3a. So again, we have a common denominator of 3a. So I'm going to add 7 plus 10 is 17. So I have 17 over 3a, and again, there's nothing that I can do to factor or simplify, so this is also in lowest terms already. Example C, 2 over y squared minus 5 over y squared. So I have a common denominator of y squared. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. And D, a over a plus b over a plus b. So my common denominator is a plus b. My numerators are a plus b. So I have a plus b over a plus b, which is equal to 1. Example E, 2y minus 1 over y squared plus y minus 2 minus y over y squared plus y minus 2. So the common denominator is y squared plus y minus 2. And then I have 2y minus 1 minus y. So I can simplify this. On the numerator, I can combine like terms. So 2y minus y is 1y minus 1. And then on the denominator, I'm going to go ahead and factor that. So y times y is y squared, 1 times 2, and I want a positive y, so it's going to be a plus 2 and a minus 1. And then I can cancel my y minus 1s, so that'll give me 1 over y plus 2. Okay, example 1, all of the parts to that example had common denominators, so to find a least common denominator if the denominators are not alike, step 1 is to factor each denominator, and then step 2 is to find the least common denominator. The least common denominator is the product of all different factors from each denominator, with each factor raised to the greatest power that occurs in the denominator. So in example 2, we're going to practice just finding the LCD for each group of denominators. So on A, we have 5k to the third s and 10k s to the fourth. So remember, the least common denominator is the smallest number that everything can multiply to. So if you look at both of these, 5 and 10 both multiply to 10. K cubed and k multiply to k cubed. And s to the fourth multiply to s to the fourth. So it's always going to be the highest exponent that's there, because if I have k and k cubed, if those are denominators, I can't make k cubed multiply just to k, but I can multiply k times k squared to make it multiply to k cubed. Okay, so it's always going to be what they can multiply to. Alright, so B, I have 3 minus x and 9 minus x squared. So remember, step 1 was to factor it. So this is a difference of two squares. So this is going to be 3 plus x, 3 minus x. Alright, so they both have a 3 minus x. So that part is common. And then we need to multiply by the 3 plus x. So the LCD is going to be 3 plus x times 3 minus x. And then C is z and z plus 6. So my LCD is going to be z times z plus 6. For example, D, 2y squared minus 3y minus 2 and 2y squared plus 3y plus 1. So remember that the first thing we're going to do is factor them. So that's going to be 2y times y. See, 2 times 1, that gives me 4, and 1. Subtract and add. That'll give me the negative 3. Okay, so I have 2y plus 1 times y minus 2. And then for the second set, 2y times y, 1 times 1. So it's going to give me 2 plus 1 is 3. Alright, so notice they both have a 2y plus 1, so that's already common. And then I'm going to multiply by a y minus 2 and a y plus 1. So whatever they have in common is going to be one of the factors, and then everything else you have to multiply together to get the least common denominator. Alright, so for E, it's the same thing. I have 3 different numbers, so this would be like having 3 fractions and having to find a common denominator. So I'm going to factor each one of those. So this is going to be x times x, 1 times 1, subtract them to get a negative 2, and then x times x, 1 times 3, subtract both of those to get a negative 4, and then 4x minus 4, take out a GCF of 4, and that's x minus 1. Alright, so notice that they each have one common factor of x minus 1. And then I'm going to multiply by everything else. So times another x minus 1 for the first one, times an x minus 3, and then times a 4. Alright, so example 3, 6/7 plus 1/5. This is just adding fractions. So for 7 and 5, my common denominator would be 35. So 7 times 5 gives me 35, so 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 7 is 35, so 1 times 7 is 7. Then we keep the denominator and add the numerators. So 37 over 35. Then on B, I have 3k and 9k. Both of those can multiply to 9k. So 3k times 3 gives me 9k. So I'm going to multiply the 8 times 3 to get 24. And then this is just times 1 because it's already 9k, so minus 2. So then I have 24 minus 2 is 22 over 9k. C is 2y minus 1 over y plus 4. So my common denominator is going to be y times y plus 4. So on the first one I already have a y, so I'm going to multiply by y plus 4, top and bottom. So when I multiply 2 times y plus 4, I'm going to go ahead and distribute that. So it's going to be 2y plus 8. And I'm subtracting. And then y plus 4, I'm multiplying it by y. So I'm going to multiply the numerator by y. So 1 times y is y. So I have 2y plus 8 minus y over y times y plus 4. And then simplify the numerator. 2y minus y by combining like terms is just y plus 8 over y times y plus 4. And then there's nothing here that I can simplify. So that's my final answer. Example 4a, 5x plus 7 over 2x plus 7 minus negative x minus 14 over 2x plus 7. So I have a common denominator already of 2x plus 7. So then I have 5x plus 7 minus all of this, negative x minus 14. So I need to put that in parentheses because I'm subtracting the whole thing. So I need to remember to make that minus as a negative 1 and distribute that. So this is going to become 5x plus 7 plus x plus 14 over 2x plus 7. And then I can combine like terms. 5x plus x is 6x. 7 plus 14 is 21 over 2x plus 7. And then 6x plus 21, I can factor that. So it has a common factor of 3, which leaves me with 2x plus 7 over 2x plus 7. So those will cancel. And my final answer is just 3 wholes. Then on B, I have 2 over r minus 2 minus r over r minus 1. So my common denominator is going to be the product of those denominators. So r minus 2 times r minus 1. So that means I'm going to multiply this first one by the r minus 1 and the second one by r minus 2. So multiply the top by the same thing. So 2 times r minus 1, r times r minus 2. So I'm going to distribute the 2 times the r minus 1. So that's going to be 2r minus 2 minus, distribute the r. So r squared minus 2r. So when I subtract it, I'm going to make sure I have put my parentheses. So 2r minus 2 minus parentheses r squared minus 2r over r minus 2 times r minus 1. I'm going to want to keep the denominator in factored form because that'll help me later when I'm trying to simplify. If I FOIL it out and expand it into a trinomial, I'm just going to have to factor it again later to see if I can reduce it. So that's just an extra step. Just leave it in factored form. Alright, so I'm going to distribute that negative 1. So this is going to be 2r minus 2 minus r squared plus 2r over r minus 2 times r minus 1. So that would give me negative r squared, and then 2r plus 2r is plus 4r minus 2 over r minus 2 times r minus 1. Then if I factor out a negative 1, that gives me r squared minus 4r plus 2. And then factor that. So it's r times r, 1 times 2, and there's no way to get 4, so that's not factorable. So this would be my final answer. And if you left it like this, that would work also. On example 5, my denominators are x minus 4 and 4 minus x. So recall from the previous section that if I multiply 4 minus x times negative 1, then that flips it around so that it matches the other one, x minus 4. So I just multiplied both top and bottom by negative 1. So that gives me a common denominator of x minus 4. And then I have 8 plus negative 2, which is 6. Okay, B, same thing. I can multiply by negative 1 to switch that to a 2x minus 9, and then multiply the top by negative 1. So then I have 2x minus 9 as my denominator, and 9 minus negative 4 is the same thing as 9 plus 4, which is 13. Okay, example 6, I have 3 fractions and I'm adding and subtracting. So the first thing I'm going to do is factor the x squared minus 5x. So it's going to be x times x minus 5. So notice that I have an x that would be part of my LCD, and I have an x minus 5 that's going to be part of my LCD. Okay, and that took care of all of the different factors. Alright, so my least common denominator is going to be x times x minus 5. So I'm going to write that for all of my fractions. Alright, so my first fraction, 4 over x minus 5, I already have the x minus 5, so I need to multiply that by x. And I have to multiply top and bottom, so the numerator is going to become 4x. On my second fraction, I have negative 2 over x, so I need to multiply that x by x minus 5. Multiply the negative 2 by x minus 5. So that's going to be negative 2x plus 10. And then the last one is already x times x minus 5, so I'm just multiplying by 1, which doesn't change anything. Alright, so now I have 4x minus 2x plus 10 minus 10 over x times x minus 5. So my 10 minus 10 cancels. 4x minus 2x is 2x over x times x minus 5. And then I can cancel my x's, and I'm just left with 2 over x minus 5. On example 7, I need to factor my denominators to see what my common denominator will be. So that's a times a, 1 times 4, positive 4 minus 1 is going to give me my 3a. And then a times a, 3 times 4, 3 plus 4 will give me a 7. Alright, so for my LCD, they both have an a plus 4 in common. And then I also have a factor of a minus 1 and a factor of a plus 3. So my LCD is going to be a plus 4 times a minus 1 times a plus 3. Alright, so my first fraction has a minus 1 times a plus 4, so I'm multiplying it also by an a plus 3, top and bottom. So when I distribute that negative a, it's going to give me negative a squared minus 3a. And then my second fraction, I have an a plus 3 times a plus 4, and so I need to multiply it by a minus 1. And then distributing the 4a gives me 4a squared minus 4a. So I have negative a squared minus 3a minus, and then parentheses, 4a squared minus 4a. That it's very important that you put that in parentheses so that you can go back and distribute that negative to everything. Alright, so then that'll give me negative a squared minus 3a minus 4a squared plus 4a. Then combining like terms gives me negative 5a squared plus 1a over a plus 4 times a minus 1 times a plus 3. And then I can distribute out a negative a, which would leave me with 5a minus 1 which there's nothing to cancel. So this would be my final answer, or I could go back to the previous step. Alright, and our last example, example 8. Again, I'm going to factor the denominators. Alright, so I have p minus 3 squared, and then p minus 3 times p plus 5. So my least common denominator, they both have p minus 3 in common. And then I'm also going to multiply it whatever they don't have in common. So another p minus 3 and p plus 5. So that's going to be my denominator. Alright, so my first fraction, I have the p minus 3 times p minus 3, and I need to multiply it also by p plus 5. And then I'm going to distribute the 4, so that's going to give me 4p plus 20 as my numerator. My second fraction, I have p minus 3 times p plus 5, so I need to multiply by the second p minus 3. So 1 times p minus 3 is p minus 3. So this would be 4p plus 20 plus p minus 3 over p minus 3 squared times p plus 5. So that's going to give me 5p plus 17 over p minus 3 squared times p plus 5. And I can't factor out anything from the numerator, and there's nothing that's going to cancel. So My final answer is 5p plus 17 over p plus 3 squared times p plus 5.